April 16, 2024, News Report 1. On April 16, 2024, Chinese President Xi Jinping met with German Chancellor Scholz at the Diaoyutai State Guesthouse in Beijing. According to AFP, Scholz stated that he and Xi discussed areas where the two countries can cooperate, including trade rules, the Ukraine war, and climate change. Scholz said he hoped China could make a greater contribution to peace in Ukraine. Xinhua reported that Xi Jinping told Scholz that mutually beneficial cooperation between China and Germany is not a risk but a guarantee of stable relations and an opportunity for the future. Both sides should be vigilant against the rise of protectionism. Scholz has basically never said no to China. During a press conference in Shanghai on April 15, a journalist asked Scholz about EU Commission President von der Leyen's call for the EU to protect itself from the impact of Chinese overcapacity. Scholz replied that this must be done from a position of confident competition, not out of protectionism, protecting oneself from the impact of Chinese overcapacity. This amounts to denying von der Leyen's view. Von der Leyen is, of course, responding to the United States. Scholz compared the current concerns of the EU about Chinese cars to the past concerns about Japanese and Korean cars. Scholz said that the previous concerns were unfounded. Scholz's implicit meaning is that the concerns about Chinese cars are also unfounded. Scholz said that Chinese electric cars are welcome. The EU is conducting an anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese electric cars. But Scholz said, welcome Chinese electric cars, so Germany's position is inconsistent with the EU. Last October, the EU launched an anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese electric cars. The European Commission will submit this preliminary report before June 5. On the other hand, on April 16, the last day of Scholz's visit to China, the Chinese General Administration of Customs announced that it would soon lift the import ban on deboned beef from Germany. Since the outbreak of mad cow disease in 2000, China has banned beef imports from more than 10 countries, including Germany, since March 1. However, it has been delayed until now, and there is political manipulation in this. News Report 2. U.S. House Speaker Johnson announced on April 15 that there will be separate votes this week on bills to aid Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. The Republicans are expected to introduce the bill as early as April 16, and the House is expected to vote on it as early as April 19. In February of this year, the U.S. Senate passed a $95 billion omnibus budget plan, including $60 billion in aid to Ukraine, $14 billion to Israel, and tens of billions to Taiwan. Johnson said the House will not consider the Senate's budget plan but will divide it into 4 separate parts for individual votes. He asked President Biden to first crack down on illegal border crossings, not called illegal border crossings, but illegal immigration. Last weekend, Iran launched attacks on Israel, and Johnson's attitude began to change, saying he wanted to show U.S. support for allies as soon as possible. White House spokesman Jean-Pierre said on April 15 that he opposes a separate bill to provide aid to Israel without providing aid to Ukraine. He called for them to be bundled, that is, bundled by the Biden administration. Johnson, on the other hand, cut it into 4 separate parts, allowing the bill for Israel to pass. Basically, in Johnson's view, the White House and the Democrats will not gain anything from it, so it was very foolish for the Democrats to oust the previous speaker. News Report 3. The Japanese government released the 2024 Diplomatic Blue Book on April 16, which is a report compiled by the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Japan's diplomatic activities over the past year. This year's Blue Book mentioned 2 main points regarding China-Japan relations. First, the Blue Book pointed out that China poses an unprecedented strategic challenge, and Japan will cooperate with like-minded allies to jointly address China's challenges. Japan and the international community are deeply concerned about China's current foreign attitude and military movements. Second, the Blue Book stated that Japan will comprehensively promote the mutually beneficial relationship with China. This is the first time in 5 years that the Blue Book has mentioned the mutually beneficial relationship between China and Japan. Japan will stabilize its relationship with China as a strategic focus. In October 2006, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visited China and proposed a mutually beneficial relationship. In May 2008, then Chinese President Hu Jintao visited Japan and signed a joint statement with Japanese Prime Minister Yasuo Fukuda to comprehensively promote the mutually beneficial relationship. This joint statement is one of the foundational documents of China-Japan relations. In addition, Fitch Ratings downgraded the credit outlook of China's 6 major banks on April 15, including ICBC, Construction Bank, Bank of China, Agricultural Bank, Bank of Communications, and Postal Savings Bank. Although only the outlook was downgraded, this reflects the uncertain economic prospects facing China, especially the increased risks facing public finances. Fitch believes that the ratings of China's state-owned banks are closely related to China's sovereign rating. Last year, the total assets of China's banking system reached 42 trillion, equivalent to 3.3 times GDP, and the market share of the 6 major banks exceeded 40%. News Report 4. Chinese real estate developer Times China was petitioned for bankruptcy by Hang Seng Bank on April 15, involving unpaid debts of $173 million and 731 million Hong Kong dollars. The Hong Kong High Court will hold a hearing on July 3. Established in 1999, Times China, founded by Chen Xiaoxiong, was one of the top 50 Chinese real estate developers when it went public in Hong Kong in 2013. After transforming into a developer, it mainly operates in Guangzhou, Zhongshan, and Zhuhai. Data shows that in March this year, Times China's sales amounted to 5.45 billion, ranking 67th nationwide. A year ago, Times China defaulted on its debt, subsequently ceasing payment of all temporary debts, leading to the petition for bankruptcy. Following the news, Times China's stock price plummeted on April 16, with the largest intraday drop reaching 49% and a closing drop of 36%. Times China may become another bankrupt real estate company following Evergrande and Country Garden. News Report 5. The US dollar index rose to 106.43 on April 16, hitting a new high since November last year. The Chinese yuan continued to be under pressure due to the rise in the US dollar index, falling below the 7.28 level during the Asian session, with the lowest at 7.2831. By 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time, it was reported at 7.2630. Onshore yuan opened at 7.24, closing at 7.2396, down 11 basis points, hitting a new low in 5 months. The spread between onshore and offshore yuan narrowed from 260 to 62 basis points, with the midpoint at 7.1028, finally breaking the 7.1 level but still deviating from market expectations by 1450 basis points. Reuters believes that after the offshore yuan opened, some state-owned banks began to sell dollars and buy yuan, thus slowing down the yuan's decline. The People's Bank of China is still stabilizing the yuan. The yen exchange rate fell to 154.61 for the first time on April 16, hitting a new low in 34 years. Japanese Finance Minister Hayashi Taro stated that he is closely monitoring the situation and will take all necessary measures to intervene in the foreign exchange market if necessary. Foreign exchange strategists believe that if the Japanese government does not intervene, the yen exchange rate may fall to 101.60 or even 100, returning to the level of April 1990. It is estimated that if the yen exchange rate falls below 155, the Japanese government may intervene. News Report 6. Reuters reported that Israeli Chief of Staff Aviv Kohavi stated at an Israeli Air Force base on April 15 that Israel will respond to attacks by Iran, but did not specify the timing and scale. Israel's Channel 12 TV reported that Israel's wartime cabinet has decided to respond to Iran's attacks with a clear and powerful counterattack. At the same time, Israel does not want the counterattack to lead to regional war or damage its relations with allies, including the United States. The United States does not want Israel to take action against Iran, as this could damage their relations. The report also stated that Israel intends to coordinate its actions with the United States, which obviously requires consultation with the United States. Iran launched more than 300 missiles and drones at Israel on the evening of April 14, but 99% of them were intercepted. After Iran's attack on Israel, President Biden hoped that Israel would act cautiously in responding to Iran's attacks. He emphasized that Iran is a very powerful country. Biden also pressured allies to maintain a unified diplomatic stance to prevent hostile actions from escalating into open war. This shows President Biden's cautious attitude in handling the situation to ensure it does not get out of control. News Report 7. Former Premier of Taiwan Su Sang-chang announced the third batch of cabinet members on April 16. The Minister of Economy is Guo Zhihui, chairman of the Chongyang Group, a chip company. The Minister of Digital Development is Huang Yannan, Executive Director of the Information Security Center of the Central Research Institute of Taiwan. The other four are Lu Jingqing, former chairman of ZCC Consulting Company, Wu Qingguan, president of Nantai University of Science and Technology, Peng Jinlong, professor of the Department of Risk Management and Insurance at Taiwan's Political University, and Qin Jinda, former acting county magistrate of Ilan County. They will serve as the heads of the National Development Council, the National Science Council, the Financial Supervisory Commission, and the Public Works Commission, respectively. Su Sang-chang stated that of the 6 cabinet members, 5 come from industry and academia, and are experts in various professional fields. They have never joined the government and have no party background. Guo Zhihui's nomination as Minister of Economy has attracted attention because he is the boss of a chip company. Guo Zhihui joined Han Hai as a driver and translator for Terry Go after graduating from university, and later moved to work for other companies. He has work experience in areas such as chips, biotechnology, optoelectronics, and environmental protection. Guo Zhihui stated that he will conduct intensive business inspections before taking office and is expected to visit Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company to meet with President Wei Zhijia. News Report 8. CNBC reported that a survey released by the non-governmental organization Global Energy Monitor showed that the installed capacity of new coal-fired power plants added globally last year reached 4,848 million kilowatts, the highest since 2016. China accounted for 2/3 of this. Chinese President Xi Jinping stated in 2021 that during the 14th five-year plan period, 2021 to 2025, China will strictly control coal-fired power projects. He promised that China will peak its carbon emissions before 2030, which is in 2024, and achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. However, these international commitments now seem to be worthless, as China accounts for 2/3 of the world's newly added coal-fired power generation capacity. The International Energy Agency predicts that to stop global coal-fired power generation by 2040, it may be possible to control the Earth's warming within 1.5 degrees Celsius. To achieve this goal, 2 coal-fired power plants need to be closed globally every week. News Report 9. Agence France-Presse reported that China exported 10 million tons of steel to Latin America last year, a year-on-year increase of 44%. 20 years ago, China's steel exports to Latin America were only 85,000 tons. According to data from the Latin American Steel Association, China's share of the global steel market has increased from 15% to 54% over the past 20 years. Since China's steel prices are 40% lower than locally produced steel prices, Chinese steel has flooded the Latin American market. This has led to the shutdown and bankruptcy of steel plants in Latin America, threatening the livelihoods of 1.4 million steel workers, as well as those in Chile and Brazil. Steel mill owners and workers in Chile and Brazil have called on the government to increase import tariffs. The Latin American Steel Association has enough evidence to support allegations of Chinese dumping and has recommended a 15% tariff. However, steel mills believe that a 15% tariff is not enough. In 2018, the United States imposed a 25% tariff on Chinese steel, and steel mills in Latin America are willing to follow suit and impose a 25% tariff on Chinese steel. One of the purposes of U.S. Treasury Secretary Yellen's recent visit to China is to address China's overcapacity in steel. Steel is a very important area, and trade disputes between the United States and Japan are also related to steel.